there. Thank you for joining me. I'm DBJ. Welcome to the channel RPG with DBJ, and I am your host. And this week, as we do every week, we pick a theme, and it's the week of Halloween, so of course Halloween's going to be the theme this week. Now we take that subject, like Halloween or dreams or dragons or whatever we want for our tabletop RPG games, and we take that, stretch it out all week, and subdivide it. So today is World Building Wednesday, and if you have not taken a look at the previous videos or going into the archives, we talked about, using on Monster Monday, we talked about different types of monsters and creatures you can use in a game, how to modify a lot of them. During the period of All Hallows Eve, how a holiday of this type is seen from different time periods, cultures, religious institutions, how the public can take a holiday and change it and twist it, and how you have echoes of its past and how it has morphed again into the future. And what a great way to steal that, in real life elements and take that and use that in your tabletop RPG games. We also talked about some mechanisms, the largest of which is the use of a fear, psychosis, sanity mechanic that of course exists in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, one of the most popular games to this date. Every iteration of Call of Cthulhu absolutely positively embraces the idea of having a fear mechanic, having a sanity mechanic. It is as dangerous or more dangerous than getting like attacked or killed by giant rats or something in those games. But today we're going to talk about World Building Wednesday. And on World Building Wednesday, we take one simple subject, which is Halloween, and we're going to build a world around it. And with your help, let's go ahead and do that. So what do we mean by world building? Well, it's the idea of taking this subject. Of course, we're talking about All Hallows Eve, and having it be the thing that has shaped the world in which people live. Much like, what's the Tim Burton stop animation movie? Nightmare Before Christmas would be an example of one form of example of taking a holiday or an event or whatever subject we talk about and building an entire world around it. So I'm imagining we can go with this two ways, and you guys help me decide on this, okay? So I'm imagining either the player characters live in another world where it is always Halloween, and the membrane. I'm sorry about that, Dead Man. Yes, Dead Man brings up Eclipse Phase, and White Wolf also have a stress styled mechanic. So for an Eclipse Phase, they also use stress, and that stress, when that stress builds up, you can kind of go over the edge. You'll have like a break, psychological break, and you'll suffer from a very simple temporary all the way to a permanent effect based on, because Eclipse Phase has to deal with transhumanism. A lot of times that has to deal with loss of memory, remerging memories, dying over and over again and being brought back with your cortical stack. That has a lot to do with it. And of course, it's a technological horror role-playing game. We're looking at you, Predator and Aliens movies. It is very much like that. So you may see things that will are quite disconcerting and drive you insane. Also, in White Wolf as well, White Wolf has a it began with humanity, but it has grown on since that. Humanity, paradox, and they use statistics like courage and instincts and willpower and such. And so stealing, if your game system doesn't have a mechanic that deals with the increasing and detrimental effects of physical and psychological horror, I suggest you go ahead and find one of those games or steal it or just create your own. connection's having a little issue. All right, so I'm thinking that either the PCs are the monsters in this scenario, right? It's like Monsters Incorporated, or Nightmare Before Christmas. It's like maybe the PCs are the ghosts, goblins, demons, or what have you, mischievous fey creatures. And when the membrane between worlds becomes thin, they are able to cross over into this more mundane world or what have you, or a world of magic, but not necessarily with an open portal. And the PCs may be the ones trying to keep their fellow brothers and sisters and others in check when the membranes thin and the planets align, and the people begin their celebrations and such. And maybe there's a lot of not just mischief goings on, but maybe there's kidnappings and hypnotisms and possessions and things. And the PCs could be the monsters themselves, trying to find, hunt, track down, or whatever. And they may have access to those things. Now, that's one direction I'm going, where you get to play some strange modified version of like a fey creature or a ghost or something like that. And honestly, without going too far into it, even with like classic Dungeons and Dragons, that's pretty easy. I think. I mean, you could take, I don't know, like a sorcerer and reskin a sorcerer into, say, a ghost or fey creature or something like that. Warlock would be pretty easy. Clerics are pretty easy. Now, for racial attributes, um, pretty much darn near everything is either medium or small. And again, you could just reskin the hell out of a lot of those things. Uh, an elf, all you got to do is just take an elf, make them a little skinnier, point their ears quite a bit, and I don't know, if someone has access to levitation or feather fall or something, you could pretend that they have use of their fey wings or whatnot. So same thing with tieflings already fit in for something of that nature, whether they're have a fiendish origin or a fey origin instead, like a satyr or a minotaur or something. And of course, there's the unearthed arcana articles, which you can steal from that as well. So that I'm choosing between the two. I'll go with imagining a world in which the PCs are the mystical creatures, because this gives the opportunity for the PCs to both act as protagonists and antagonists. Um, for example, good to have you back there, Omen. I know it's in the evening at this point, so it might be a little bit disconcerting. Evening in the future, actually, you're a time traveler, or we are coming at you from the past. Boom, 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 boom. Now, excuse me, if we wanted to, you would have to create an entire world as to why the player characters in the world they live in has this thinnish membrane between what I suppose you could call the dream world or the horror world and reality, and with the PCs living in the dream world. And it could be that you could use, say, a list of fears, or without, I apologize if I'm disrespecting anyone with this, but you could also have a list of like your top 10 or 20 psychological diagnoses, and then create a world around each of those. And those could be regions in this other world, this Halloween styled world, where there's a place where people, or even fears, as you go with fears, you have a place that's constantly falling, and a place of a fear of being alone, and a place of unfinished the unfinished works of people that live in that have died in the reality and moved over to this dream world, or this fey world where the PCs live, and maybe their friends and neighbors or just happen to be ghosts that they can't seem to move on because they're obsessed with finishing the unfinished works that they've done. And so the PCs could be like marshals, sheriffs, part of a protectorate to keep everything in order. And then when they go into the real world, when Halloween holiday comes around, they get to go into this real world, and there maybe there's something missing in the dream world or the fey world, and it's only something that they can get by going into the world of reality during the moment where people are celebrating All Hallows Eve. I'm not sure yet how you could design that, but I believe you could go pretty deep with it. I think you could go pretty deep with it. Now, there's also the idea of um, if we're going to stick with the PCs being the normies, and Halloween comes around and these dark things. Now, Dead Man brings up Changeling the Dreaming or Wraith the Oblivion. Both of them quite a similar mechanic done in a different way. For those who don't know, White Wolf, the White Wolf game back in the early 90s designed Vampire the Masquerade, and then they went about and created individual role-playing worlds and then created rules to combine them all together. Changeling the Dreaming is all about the Fae, and the Wraith the Oblivion is all about being dead. And in Wraith, something you could steal from in either one of these. In Changeling the Dreaming, they each player character has a statistic that ties them both to the Fey world and reality. And that statistic will move up and down based on the character's actions and their beliefs and the things they interact with. And the choices they make will tie them either far more strongly to the Fey world or far more strongly to reality, the physical world, the mundane world. And if it brings across the idea that, for example, let's say a homeless person who's talking to themselves, in Changeling the Dreaming, they absolutely positively could be talking to someone else, even though you can't see them because they exist in the Fey world, and vice versa. Creatures that are in the Fey world may be pulled more and more into the real world and such. Now, in Wraith the Oblivion, they have something called fetters, and each player character is dead, and there's a whole world of the dead. It describes the hierarchy, and uh, I believe they're called the renegades and specters and all kinds of different definitions for spirits. But the PCs are tied to the living world, and they are tied to the living world through fetters. And you're tied here through a person, place, or thing, and that is what gives you power. What basically gives you enhancements for your player character, allows you to heal, allows you to focus your powers through those fetters, and enemies of you will be attacking your fetters. And a fetter could be a wedding ring, a child, a book, a home, a destroyed car that fell off of a cliff, any number of these things, and you make them up as you go. The rules for fetters are all the same, but you try to be very unique with and descriptive and very personal with your fetters. So using either of those two, I could see Halloween, All Hallows Eve, as being some form of the mix of the two, whether there are calling upon some other holidays, like uh, the other day, I believe it was yesterday, we brought up the Day of the Dead. And if the PCs are more mundanes, maybe the things that they hold dear to them are able to call upon what others consider to be evil spirits, but for the family or for the player characters specifically, they're able to call loved ones back, or maybe they're trying to deal with um, an unrequited love or a family enemy. or someone that has harmed them, and only during this holiday they are able to to confront their enemies. Alley oops, you're fine. Go get some sleep. And like Lorkin and Too Early. You think I'm terrible at 6 a.m. Uh, Eastern Standard Time. You guys are just like 3 in the morning. It's crazy, crazy. Now, going the other direction, you could the going the other direction. The PCs are from the Dream Fae fiendish world, and they are summoned ghost world, and they come to the mundane world. Um, Maybe the only way power is shifted in this other world is to capture, attack, abuse, take control of someone else's fetters. Now, of course, you don't have to use that specific terminology or even that specific use, but it would be pretty interesting to, not have gold or territory, but the ability to say, someone has a locket from a lost loved one, and the PC is the lost loved one, and they want to care for the person who is distraught over their loss. And on one hand, the PC really does want that person to move on and have a happy life. But on the other hand, if they move on and have a happy life and put the locket away in a drawer, they'll no longer have that connection and be drawn to the world. So much like we talked about mechanics yesterday, you could I'm going to be very general here, right? You could mix or split hit points or health or whatever track you're using, and split the hit points amongst the fetters that the PCs have. So attacks on the fetters are a loss of the player characters when they make their death saves, and if they fail their death saves, they get shunted back into the Fey Dream Ghost fiendish world, and so protecting those individuals becomes the mission, as opposed to I hit it with a big stick and it tries to hit me as well. And maybe that damage to a person's stress track or health isn't so much, maybe that track isn't so much a physical harm, although it definitely would work, right? Uh, a normal mundane person being attacked on the streets or in the shadows or something, but it could also be psychological harm. Um, fears that are implanted in their heads or exposed to them, or people being manipulated around them so that they for example, the loved one that is holding on to the locket of the lost PC, their enemy tries to bring about a meeting with another person for their loved one to have a relationship with, to fall in love with someone who's very attractive and charismatic, and comes into their life to take care of them. And all of a sudden, the PC starts losing their connection to this world, at least with the locket and their loved one who used to be distraught over their loss, because now they've met someone new. And their enemy is manipulating this new suitor, this new lover, or what have you. And the PC has to try to put a wedge in order to stay in this world. They have to put a wedge between this new love, but at the same time, they don't want to ruin it, but they know that it's not real because it's being manipulated by their enemies. So I think that would be some great, I think you get some great stories out of that. A lot of them very social, very psychological, but I think you get some great stories in it. Now, Tesla says in the cipher system setting, the strange, you can jump from universe to universe, known as recursions. Yes, I do not own it, but I know of the cipher system, and some people dislike Monty Cook, but I love the games though. This one is called Halloween, which is a town-size recursion based on the holiday. I did not know that. Oh, I did not know that. Yeah. Hopefully this won't clog up my computer. Oh wow. Oh, I see. There's a whole map and everything. Forest Hills, Coven of the Rusted Knife. I've clicked the link in the Fantasy Grounds Discord over there at DeviantArt for that Tesla put in there. Thank you very much for that. I've never tried his version of World of Darkness. And he's got there's actually quite a number of games written off of the Cypher system. And we have, Pelora and myself are fans of Invisible Sun, the role-playing game that he has, Invisible Sun. So we're fans of that as well. Now, in having like a Halloween town, I think is really cool, especially if you're like, if your friends and neighbors are like these weird, strange, reality-based images of the things that we have in Halloween, like a headless horseman, a person with a jack-o'-lantern on their head, a ghost, and a werewolf, and a Frankenstein, and a princess, and a fireman, and like, it would be pretty strange and pretty cool to have the costumes that normal people wear are in reality living in the Halloween town. And maybe, of course, every day it's Halloween. You could even, if we want to be really, really, really silly, everyone has maybe a sack of candy, and each piece of candy they lose is like a hit point lost, and you don't want to get pop a hole in your sack of candy, and in order to heal, you gotta collect more candy, going trick or treating to the neighbors and stuff to heal. That would be quite silly. A cure spell is taking bits and pieces of candy and giving them to your other allies. That would be hilarious. I think you could distract your enemies by throwing bits and pieces of candy down the street to get away from them. I did not know there was specifically Monty Cook's World of Darkness. I did not know that. Oh, I did not know that. I've seen that before. I guess it's. Oh, okay. Isn't this the new? How do I say new? New. Um, isn't that the rewritten, like, version after, not version 20.0, but or I guess you could call it like 5th edition or something, but something after that? Omen says it just has vampires, werewolves, mages, demons, and hunters in it. Just? I like how you put the word just, as if the word just and only makes things small. Come on, that's a lot of stuff in there. It could be just about one of those. So I don't see a problem with that. So I think some people, yeah, well, they were all, come on now. I don't see you mentioning mummies in there. Remember mummies? Huh? Yeah, Promethean, Sin Eaters. Yeah, changelings. I get it. I get they weren't in there. But guess what? Uh, Success breeds more success. So if depending on the success of that book, I could imagine another book with changelings and Prometheans and etc. being brought into it. I could see that. Wraith. I don't see Wraith up in there either. Ah, gotcha. No, I'm messing with you. But in general, you since we're world building, you could. I think it's really. I think it wouldn't be a problem having like Halloween classifications for characters. I mean, we know there's a difference just in our own role-playing experiences, that there's a difference between vampires and werewolves and mages and demons and changelings and mummies and such. So I could see there being classifications where there might be all kinds of like ghouls and goblins, but all the goblins are of a goblinoid type that live together or relate to each other. So you might have your small mischievous goblins, like they tie knots in your shoelaces, or they scratch records and CDs, or they spoil your food and laugh about it or something. They leave toilet paper attached to the bottom of your shoe or something. But there might also be more dangerous goblinoids where they're the size of ogres and they like to grip you up or hang under your bed or something of that nature. And then there might be another form of groupings just known as changelings, and maybe those changelings are able to turn invisible or shape change or mimic their voices or use ventriloquism to throw their voice or use little pandemonium things to make people reach their hand out to touch someone or force someone to drop something in their hand or write down or say something they didn't mean to say, and appear as a loved one or appear as someone that they dislike or what have you to distract them. Like, you could have different classifications, and I think that'd be kind of cool. Deadman puts a review of the Monty Cook's World of Darkness, saying that this is from RPG.net. It says Monty Cook's World of Darkness provides a post-apocalyptic horror setting where the central United States lies in ruins after an incursion by supernatural forces from beyond our understanding. I did not know it was post-apocalyptic. Now, 1 year after the Nightmare Wave event that followed the breach in our reality, vampires, werewolves, and demons walk the earth while a few rare people are beginning to understand real magic for the first time. Special humans called Awakened fight with allied creatures of darkness against the horrors in the night, and the setting offers an incredibly diverse number of ways to run the game. Powered by the D20 system, Monty Cook's World of Darkness offers incredible flexibility while still retaining the World of Darkness feel that inspires it. I didn't know he could, well, I guess I didn't know he could steal the term World of Darkness. I'm a little surprised by that. I suppose, although White Wolf Games doesn't exist anymore, so I guess it became open domain or something. I don't know. I don't know how that works. And I like the idea of it being post-apocalyptic. There have been many types of intellectual properties that have done like a post-apocalyptic arcane horror. Like one was called Vega, where there was a city. Las Vegas became a walled city where there was like a fight between angels and demons, and humanity was cowering behind these city walls and such. And maybe you have people, Mad Max style, with welded on spears and spikes and armored plates onto school buses and dump trucks and stuff, trying to ride across the post-apocalyptic world where there are, like, blasts of fire and demons flying through the sky, and the sun never seems like it. Even when the sun is high in the sky, it always seems like these dark clouds overhead, almost like our imagination of after a nuclear war, where it just blows dust into the air, and when it rains, you might call it like brown down. It's not just rain, it's like brown and muddy, and maybe it's got like red in it, kind of like almost like it's blood, like pouring out of the sky and things like that. That's kind of far away. My mind is going well far away from Halloween, although if Halloween became a permanency, I could see it becoming quite post-apocalyptic. Maybe the goblins and ghouls are like the bottom of the totem pole, but they're like hired help or slave kind of, and they're the ones that build this place. Owen says Christmas every day would be just as bad. Some would disagree with you, but I think over time they would say the same thing, right? Deadman says White Wolf still exists. They just released many of their copyrights pertaining to World Darkness. Okay. I know a lot of that material has shifted hands over time into the hands of the creators, and so a lot of that's where you get names like Monty Cook and the Harpers of the world and things like that, where the people who worked for these companies have gone out on their own and designed their own thing. So, yeah. Owen says, winter is coming indeed. Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow, I didn't think about that. It'll always be snowing. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. And everybody was like, if I've got another chestnut one more time. I swear I will. Ooh, don't make me finish the sentence, because I'll. Ooh, if I have to jingle bells my ass, I swear. Oh, that'd be hilarious. But I suppose with like Halloween, it would always be the moon would always be in the sky, and there'd be a lot of cavities. Although I suppose turning the volume up to 11, something like bobbing for apples and um, the trick-or-treating thing could be, maybe they're like roving bands of people dressed in dark cloaks and domino masks. What's the that weird classic mask that just looks like a big giant beak, like a stork's beak or something? And yeah, there's always a full moon. Um, the only way to protect yourself, or the rare people who walk from city to city to protect themselves, cover themselves in these like ragtag costumes of sorts to pretend to be like the evils that are out there, and maybe even people in is it the plague doctor's mask? Is that what it's called? I know it has a name. It actually has a name and a purpose. It's the one with the long. It's usually ivory and maybe bejeweled, and has a long beak off of it. Not the Because I was mixing the two, because I know the domino mask is often white, although it usually can have feathers. And you've seen it in black and filigree painted on them, and that's the one with the little. It's often seen where someone has a little handle. So instead of the elastic band, there's a little handle that you hold up to your face. But um, the plague doctor's mask is different than the flat domino's mask. It's the one with the long beak off the end of it, and I always think that's I don't like that one. And there's another mask. Is it like Satan's goat or the devil's goat? It is the uh, bone and skull and horns of like a goat or a deer or a ram or something as well. Yeah, Dead Man puts up the plague doctor's mask in the Discord. Yeah. I mean, it's bizarre and scary, and like there's I mean, you know, anytime someone wears a mask, it's a little bit disconcerting, but ha- that specific mask, when worn by a bunch of people, you're not able to see their facial features, and you may not understand their motivations and stuff. And I can imagine that being a thing, like that type of mask being a thing, mixed with um, um, the fashion of, say, the Day of the Dead. And I could imagine creatures and spirits, like almost like they're sniffing people randomly to see if they are actually one of the living or one of the innocents, as they try to hide themselves in these cloaks and walking dark streets because the sun never rises again. And the 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 unfettered spirits and demons and such that walk the earth might be trying to recruit others to their side, or cause pain um, in random forms. And yeah, I think you could play around a lot with that. Of course, you have your PCs that can open up a can of whoop ass on the evil things that are out there, but a world, especially a post-apocalyptic Halloween world, might bring more pain than a little bit. So while they might be able to fight off some of the more minor demonic influences, there would be things that like ghosts and such that are purely mental. I'm sure that there would be creatures that sense the world in a way beyond, say, a visual sense. So there might be blind creatures that can hear the screams of the innocent and come running to gorge themselves on their flesh. There may be creatures that can sniff fear. And yes, I'm going to bring it up. Will Smith's After Earth, they could smell the pheromones of fear. And so there may be creatures that are completely blind. And as long as you're unafraid of them, they just walk around randomly, or maybe they sway in a kind of a stasis in little hovels or something like that, or walk the streets just randomly sniffing and bumping into things. But if they sense fear, if a drop of sweat pours off of your brow, or someone is like trying to hold a scarf over their mouth to keep themselves from screaming, maybe the creatures just go bizarre with their dead, lifeless eyes, or no eyes at all, and they just rip them from ripping their bodies in the streets. And passersby will just keep on walking as if nothing's happened, because if they are fearful of what has just happened when someone is killed, this creature may turn on them as well. So yeah, I definitely could see something like that. And maybe people are making, much like your classic warlock, right? Maybe people are making deals with the devil, as it were, to keep the ghouls and goblins and ghosts away from their home or away from their families. And a whole economy could be surfacing. People who are kidnapped and enslaved would absolutely positively be an economy in and of itself. Um, I could see the enslavement industry becoming a thing, because, hey, if I'm part of the economy, I'm going to be left alone by these quite nasty beings and creatures and things like that. And having these creatures, people moaning and scared, and and starving, and wearing scraps of clothing on their bodies, being bought and sold and traded on open markets in these dark cities. Yeah, the goat head mask is also called a Baphomet mask. I, I, I never. Yeah, it's that sun bleached skull of a goat or ram or deer or something. Baphomet? That's what I said. Or Baphomet. Oh, that I placed the wrong emphasis in the improper syllable. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna pick that man. So and Tesla. So yeah, um, it's either, what else? Baphomet, Baphomet. I pick and choose, just like I like the other day. What was it? Asmodeus or Asmodeus or Asmodeus? It depends on where you put your emphasis, which syllable you choose to use. Um, anyway, anyway. Also, um, hmm, I suppose fiends would have taken over, but I could imagine a lot of different enclaves based around specific Halloween themed beings, right? Like vampires in one place, uh, demons and or devils in another place, ghosts in another, yet another have their own enclave, ghouls and feeding upon the dead, and there may even be like a rudimentary governmental system where if you can't beat them, you have to join them. So the governmental system, uh, the dead may, the dead who have died from plague may be given to the ghouls, because the ghouls are the ones that remove the bodies, and then etc. Yeah, Des says, this reminds me of Pennywise and how he would make you afraid before he would devour you. Yeah. Hey, Des, what's going on there, man? good, good to hear from you. Hope you're heading off to work. Um, Tesla says the Carnival of Venice has many styles of mask, including the Medicio della Peste, the Plague Doctor. Ah. Yeah, I think you could pull a lot from that kind of thing. I don't know how to butcher some Italian there. Carnaval de Venezia? Carnevale di Venezia. I don't know. I ruining it, butchering it with my lazy tongue. But yeah, the Baphomet mask. Yep. There it is with the curved horns. Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking. I clicked it. Yeah, pretty nasty stuff there. Pretty nasty stuff. Especially if we take the form that that kind of mask becomes a real thing, or over time it's a thing that becomes merged with the people who wear it. So maybe they're not masks at all, or they're not masks based on the people who have achieved the status where it is a real thing. You could even make player character races based on those as well. And much like Des brings up Pennywise and making you afraid before you get devoured, and of course we're going to bring this up tomorrow in Third Pillar Thursday. Maybe some of the horrors in traveling through this post-apocalyptic world are falling into like much like a sarlacc pit. Maybe there are sarlacc pits full of people's fears, and they are fears incarnate, collected together like a dust bunny of fears. So you could fall into one of these, and I'm saying pit because I need to give it a descriptor, but maybe there are these regions where if you fall into it, your fear of being alone, you're absolutely alone, and you you're in the same world, but you're absolutely positively alone until you can figure your way back. And so your allies see you disappear into this pit, and then or whatever the case might be, vortex or something like that, and you're spit out the other end of the vortex. And when you spit out the other end, you're in this psychological loop of in this plane of non-existence where you're only by yourself, and you have to, your friends and allies need to call to you to bring you back, and you have to believe that they will be there for you, because if you go to this place of loneliness, you the depression, the overriding, it like sinks into your very being, that there's nowhere for you to go. You're here all alone forever and ever until you pull yourself back. And that would be a different type of trap or puzzle than, say, falling into a pit and hitting a spike at the bottom, right? Um, psychological psychological traps and hazards in this world, I could see being a thing. Much like being Deadman says, watch Channel Zero to see lots of worlds built on that concept. As in, well, thank you, Pelora. I like 15 minutes of you, if you know what I mean. I'm just messing with you, P. Des says, in that situation, just tell yourself it's not real. Well, the there you go. Thank you so much, Pelora. Now, telling yourself something isn't real is very difficult if your senses are telling you it is real, right? So your mind is saying it's not real, but you feel the wind against your face. If you, let's say you have a fear of heights, right? And you're standing on the edge of a building, and there's no handholds. You feel the wind, you see how far it's down there. You can feel the toes of your feet, as the stone starts to crumble beneath you. Like, if all of your senses are telling you it's real, um, even though it's not, it would be very difficult to say that the thing that isn't real. Like, like today we have VR glasses, and you could take the VR glasses off and go, it's not real. Or you go to the movies and you're like, nah, that's not real. But imagine a movie where you feel the heat and the air and the warmth, and you smell it, and the creature that's breathing in your ear, licks you, and you feel the moist you know, nasty mucus as it drips into your ear canal and down to your neck and stuff. And you're telling yourself over and over again, like, this isn't real. This isn't real. You feel the nail scrape against your chest or something. Yeah, no. Yeah, I could see that. Now I hear you, Des, which would be the way to try to get out of it. And pretty hard thing to do when all you want to do is like grab the nearest battle axe and go ham on whatever's trying to attack you. You know what I mean? Channel Zero wiki. Yeah, channel. I've never seen Channel Zero, and I always want to tell myself to watch it. Channel Zero is an American horror anthology television series created by Nick M. Antosca, who serves as writer. Series was greenlit for 2 6-episode self-contained seasons. Hmm. I'm getting the impression it's somewhat like Black Mirror or Twilight Zone. Yeah. Plura says, well, I don't like heights. Even seeing a video from high up will give me problems. Once you get into all the VR sensory stuff, that's it. Which could be the thing, right? If you believe it's real, it is real. If you believe it's fake, it is fake. And then you might have the problem of, okay, I don't believe the demon is real, so it's not real to me, but it's ripping my ally, limb from limb. And because I know it's not real, maybe I can't touch it. The only thing I can do is try to wake up my friend from being ravaged by this thing. That'd be kind of, it would be rather strange, but kind of cool as well. Even if, much like Inception, if the PCs are literally in a dream state, a dream world, and this dream world is very much like Halloween, but their real bodies are actually asleep in a nightmare somewhere else, and the horrors they go through in the world of Halloween are expressed on their bodies in this dream world, that would be kind of a different way of describing narratively what is going on as they break out in sweats and claw marks appear on their flesh as they fight off these demonic entities. And maybe a lot of these demonic entities aren't just mindless ravaging creatures. Maybe they're trying to make deals to go out into the mundane, the real world, by inserting themselves into the spirits of the people who are asleep but vulnerable to their machinations, and the PCs are trying to prevent them from traveling into the real world, and this is their portal out into the real world. I could see, much like I could see a lot of things being reskinned to fall into this world. Instead of the classic, like, I've got a magic missile and I blast someone, maybe the PC is surrounded by the spirits of their ancestors or something that come swirling around their body and blasting, flying at hypersonic speeds towards their enemies and flowing through their bodies or something of their enemies, or flowing around them, causing them to trip and fall or go blind, or being mind controlled or what have you, or it takes evil to fight evil. So instead of casting a spell like a hold person or something, the PC, their eyes flash and this ghostly demonic hand grabs up their enemy and holds them, and it's like red and scaly with black fingernails or something that's like huge, that's able to grab a man-sized creature about the arms and body and hold them tight or something like that. I could see reskinning a lot of those things. Even going so far as to maybe the PC has a cloak, and when they open up their cloak, all these goblins and mischievous creatures come out from their body and perform different acts, as if they are independent, but really they're just aspects of that player character. So if a player character has like mage hand, it's actually a goblin that goes over and does something. Or instead of a grease spell, there are these like little fey creatures and goblins pouring oil on the ground and throwing bananas down and laughing about it or something like that. And then they go up underneath the cloak or climb onto the back of the PC. And once they go behind the PC or go behind their legs, they seem to disappear and no one sees them until they, come out again or something. I think that would be a great narrative descriptive element as well. Also, maybe, just maybe, going along the lines of like Call of Cthulhu, or sorry, not Call of Cthulhu, the Cthulhu mythos. Maybe there's a greater evil out there, and while the PCs, people are afraid of the PCs and what they do, whether they live in another world or they're mundane and are calling upon these powers or they're running from these things, maybe there's a even greater entity out there. And so the League of Vampires and the Conclave of Fiends and the I don't know, the icons of ghosts or something like that. Yeah, they're bad and they're evil and no one wants to deal with them, but maybe there's something bigger out there. And if somebody could just get them organized, or if we could just find enough people to go out there to stop this even more nihilistic incursion, maybe we will all survive and destroy the thin membrane between worlds or something like that. So whatever the case may be, today here it's depending on where you're at or how this holiday is celebrated, if you celebrate it at all. I'm sure you're going to see lots of goings on today and tomorrow, especially. I know here in Central Ohio, they on television they will tell you which communities celebrate the day on specific days and times, for the safety of everyone around. I know here it's usually between 5:30 in the evening until about 8 o'clock at night, depending, and it's usually about a 2 hour and a half to 2 hour period, depending on which county you are in. And of course, the police work there, parents and neighbors will be out. Lots of people will light little fires and sit in their driveways and hand out candy and stuff. Plur says, I saw a firework last night. True story. A single firework? That's like having one pant. You can't have just one firework. A single wait a minute. All right, Omen. Hey, well, we're getting to the end anyway, so I understand you do have to be off to work, which is pretty fine, which is quite all right. Anyway, we're coming to the end anyhow, and of course, as you guys know, I'm for my time it's almost 7 o'clock in the morning, and I will have to head off to work. But for those who don't know, just as a recap, I am DBJ, and this channel we go live Monday through Friday pretty consistently. We'll take a subject, and mind you, you guys come up with a lot of the ideas that we come up with on this channel. So I'll pick a theme for the entire week, and then each day it's basically world building nearly every single day. Tomorrow is Third Pillar Thursday. For those who don't know, the reference of third pillar represents the third pillar of tabletop gaming, which deals with exploration. And as a little plug for myself, I write books for Critical Hit Publishing. We have my little brainchild is the cinematic environs that deals with nothing but the exploration pillar, basically setting up unique and variable and amazing locations that you can use in your game, whether it's so far Arctic and aquatic, desert regions and such. I'm still doing last minute finishes on the wetlands for swamps and bogs and mires, and it will go off to layout and rewriting with Alex and Rob. Rob will do some editing, and hopefully it'll be out before the end of the year, but I can't promise that. Layout work is very much an art and science, so it can take some work with that. But also, and as a reminder, up at the top at the Discord thing, there's a link to the Twitch channel. There's a link to the YouTube channel. We're also on Fantasy Grounds Discord, and There is a growing archive of these very episodes on SoundCloud if somebody wishes to listen in and use them um, as a podcast. And of course, check out the YouTube channel. There's, I don't know, 600, 700 videos or something like that. All of them, or the majority of them, like an hour or something like that. So it's pretty good. Puller says, critical hit, the perfect Christmas gift. I don't think you're referring to what I think you're thinking that you're referring to. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Your time is very valuable, and I'm glad you could spend it with me. I hope you're able to leave with some change.